I think it's fair to say that all of us need a little laughter in our lives right now. Laughter, after all, is the best medicine. And right now, in the midst of this COVID crisis, I think we can all use a truckload of it. My guest today knows all about the importance of laughter. She discovered its power when she left her career as a lawyer and then decided to follow her dream of being a comedian. It is a powerful story that I'm going to let her tell in a moment. She is also deeply affected by this COVID outbreak. All of her bookings have been canceled, and now she's trying to map out a new normal, as we all are. I am so looking forward to this conversation and to the comedy that she is going to share with us in this podcast. Yes, we may get a free show throughout this whole conversation. I am just so thrilled to welcome the one and only Candy Palmater to the Inner Circle, joining me on a Zoom call from Toronto. Hello,
Pleasure's
Candy.
all mine. The pleasure's all mine. I'm so happy to be joining anybody right now. I am so lonely. I'm open for dates. I'm happy to do phone sex if that's what people are into. I just need to connect with somebody somehow.
Right? Isn't
Yeah.
this like the craziest circumstances that we can be asked to live under
It's
as
torture
human
for them.
beings? Because
It's
that's, I
torture.
mean, this is how we connect. Like, we need these
No.
connections.
Last night I tweeted that I wanted to be in a pitch dark room with Roxy music and Kate Bush pulsating through the walls and multiple random people pressing their bodies against me. That's what I need right
Were
now.
you dreaming of that?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I think we all have those dreams
Yeah,
in various different
yes,
forms.
exactly. Isolation wishes, big time.
Oh, Candy, I got to say, I'm just so thrilled to be talking to you because I know that you do gigs right across Canada. You also had your own TV show that we're going to dig into. But after you were on a stage in Edmonton, I had so many people reach out to me and go, Carrie, you have got to talk to this woman. She is unbelievable. So here we are. And
Yes.
here we go. So I want to dig into your story because it is so powerful. And I think there's so many learnings for our audience who always have dreamed of being something and then end
Mm.
up at point, G in their life when they really wanted to be at point XYZ in their life. You know what I'm saying? So tell me, born and raised in New Brunswick, youngest of 7 kids, pick it up there.
Yeah, so I am youngest by a lot. My dad is Mi'kmaq from Middle River Bar First Nation. My mom was white from the town of Dalhousie. They met when they were really young, like 5 or 6. Played baseball together. Went to the war. After the war, they got
Wow.
married. My mom lost her family in marrying him because in the 40s, their white daughter marrying an indigenous guy. My dad was a really bad alcoholic. He had started drinking in his teens, and of course, the war made that horrible. And by the time they got married, he was really a full blown alcoholic. They had lived in poverty, they lived in alcoholism, they had baby after baby after baby, 6 of them all together. Then in his 30s, my dad got sober. And when he got sober, he opened the first Harley Davidson dealership east of Montreal in Atlantic Canada.
Oh my gosh.
And after 10 years of sobriety, he asked my mother, look, and here's my mother, right? 43, full head of gray hair, 6 grown children. And he said, so I know you had 6 already, but I was drinking. I didn't get to be a good dad. I was just wondering, do you think we could go one more time? So that's when I was born. And I had an advantage in terms of I'm born into this family full of adults. They shower me with love and attention from the get-go. And it was sort of never there was never any other possibility except she is wonderment and she is going to be wonderment in the world. And when you are raised being told that, that is such a gift,
Mhm.
because to me it was just a given. It was a given that I was going to go out into the world and sprinkle candy glitter all over everything. And so but it was a matter of how am I going to do that? So as a kid, I thought I am going to be a musician. We didn't have much money. My dad traded some work on a motorcycle for a Como Starburst acoustic guitar. It has been 46 years. I still haven't learned how to play it. Despite my beautiful
And
radio
so no
voice,
acoustic musician career.
when I sing, birds fall out of the trees. So I used to sit on my bed in my bedroom, which was this wonderful pink palace. Kind of doesn't look all that much different than my bedroom now. Um, and I used to think, what if bands could be in here? What if they could play in here and then I could ask the right questions because these people interviewing them don't ask the right questions? And that was my first dream of the Candy show. And I had seen Buffy St. Marie on Sesame Street. And when I saw Buffy St. Marie on Sesame Street, I said, whoa, I could be on TV. Because that was the first time for me seeing an indigenous person other than Jesse Beachcombers. It was like, oh, this could be for me. But I tucked it in the back of my head because—
Wait, how old were you then?
Oh, when I saw Buffy, I was probably 7 or 8. And when I had the Candy Show dream, I was 13, 14. But as an indigenous person,
yes,
I knew I needed to have the paper. Like white people like the paper. So I was like, I'm going to go to university and get my paper.
Okay.
And I went off to university a little bit like lost. I knew I wanted to play volleyball. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I came out of university. I moved to Halifax, which was my favorite city in the country. I started working in human resources at Dalhousie University, which is a job with a good pension when you're from a small town. When you get a pension, you're supposed to hold that with your white knuckles till you die.
Right.
And then at 27, I said to my parents, I'm quitting my job. And I'm actually going to go to law school. And people went crazy. People told me I wouldn't get in. People said, oh, you're leaving your pension.
Oh
people were just kind of going nuts. And I went to law school with this idea that I would set the world on fire through law, maybe politics, because in high school I had been very politically active. So I started down that path. And then in law school, everyone said, oh, it's a good job you want to be an advocate because, no Mi'kmaq person has ever been hired back at a private firm in Nova Scotia's history. So all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, it's the year 2000. That hasn't happened yet. And I'm going to have to do that.
My gosh. Okay, wait, pause. Like, how do you just go to university and go, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to be a lawyer. Like, it's only one of the hardest professions out there, girl. Like,
well,
you straight A, crazy smart student?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't a bad student, but I studied and studied and studied for the LSAT. And I did horribly the first time, and I studied and studied and studied some more, and I did much better the next time. And by the time I had applied the second time, by the time I had applied with the second course, I was 25, which technically made me a mature student. So I got an interview, and as soon as I got an interview, I said, I'm in, because I never fail an interview. And so I walked into the interview ready to just take over that place. And I got in, and it wasn't, it's not like brain surgery law school. Like, it's not, like really technically hard, but what it is it's incredibly voluminous. Like, it is nonstop work. And although I had some friends who could party during law school, like I could not. I felt like if you missed a day of reading, you're screwed, because there's just so much work. But it was like, this is what I want to do. This is, I'm going to sacrifice everything for this. And then I woke up at 32 years old, and I was a corporate lawyer. I said, oh my God, how did this happen? This fits me like a bad suit. I'm miserable.
Seriously? What did you hate about it? You're
everything.
A lawyer making a killing.
I was helping rich people get richer, which was not something I was interested in. I didn't particularly enjoy the people I was working with at the firm. Like, nothing about it turned me on. I feel like life should turn you on. Every day, life should turn you on in some way. Like, there should be juice. You should be always feeling some juice. And I was drying out. Like, there was just no juice in being a lawyer. But this cool little thing was happening. I was volunteering my time with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And through Big Brothers Big Sisters, I was hosting events in clubs for them, and getting on stage and being funny and hearing people laugh and going, very interesting. I had given a speech when I was about 5 or 6 or in grade 5 or 6, to bring a sportsplex to my hometown. So I already knew how good it felt to make a speech and have people respond. But then making the funnies, it was like, this feels really kind of good. This feels kind of great, actually. So while I was still a lawyer, I started telling people I was a comedian. And I had never told a joke in public before. And I was 32 years old.
Stop it.
And everybody was like, "You're what?" I said, "Oh yeah, did you not know? No, I'm totally a comedian. I could come and entertain at your event. If you're having an event, I could be the entertainment." So someone took me up on it. Mayan Francis was
Okay, so wait.
Yeah, you got to just
okay, so you're working as a corporate lawyer and you were telling people that you were a comedian.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I'm dying. Okay.
And that's when people say, "What do you do? What do you do?" I'd say, "I'm a comedian." I wouldn't even say I'm a lawyer. So I got the call. The Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission says, "Well, we're having an event for 200 women. We'd like you to come down and do comedy. How much would you charge?" And I thought, they first wanted Bette McDonald to perform, who's a great East Coast performer, and they couldn't afford her. So then they came to me, and I met Bette at a Halifax Comedy Festival a couple of years later, and I said, "Thank God they couldn't afford you, because it's what launched my career." I wrote 20 minutes of material. I told them the first one was free, because I didn't know if I was good at this. I thought, if I suck, I don't want to ask for money. Although that was the last time I ever worked for free. Make sure you get paid.
Okay.
I'm big on that. I wrote 20 minutes of material. I went down. I did it. I got a standing ovation. People said, where do we find you? How do we book you? I said, "Oh, just go to thecandyshow.com." And then I called all the computer geeks I knew, and I was like, "Somebody has to build me a website. It has to be called The Candy Show." And I got my website up and running. I was off to the races. And then I realized, okay, I got to go. I got to stop practicing law. It's killing me. And at 32, I stopped practicing law. I left a 12-year relationship I had been in, which was like the hardest thing I had ever done. It was harder leaving him than it was leaving the law. Luckily, I, right around that time, met my now wife and manager, Denise. And Denise had a little house out in the Rawdon Hills in the country. And I went out to her house and I hibernated for a year. I didn't see people. I didn't socialize. I didn't talk to people. I read constantly. I cried a lot. And I got my shit together. And I decided, okay, you gotta lay down for a minute and lick your wounds. And then you got to get up, sister, and you got to get up swinging. And that's what I did. After a year, I got up swinging. I started to work at the provincial government during the day as the director of Mi'kmaq education. And at night and on the weekends, I went hard after my entertainment career.
Okay, how about leaving law? I know that you had a fiercely close relationship and a very good relationship with both your mom and your dad.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like for you to step away from that? Because I'm sure they were so proud of you for taking that path. And then, like, how did you tell them, "Hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go and be a comedian"?
Yeah, that's exactly how I said it. I waited till everybody was home on a Sunday, and I just said, "Look, I'm dying, and I can't practice law anymore. I'm leaving this to become a comedian." And I broke up with my boyfriend. I met a woman, and this is what's happening right now in my life. And they said, since you've been practicing law, you lost your sense of humor. You don't come home to visit. You're not really doing anything for the community. It looks to us like all you're doing is making money. And so we don't fully get the comedian thing, but we raised a smart woman, so we're behind you. As always, we will be. Right before I had quit, my father had a quadruple bypass surgery. He was rushed to St. John. I got the call and I left Halifax to go to St. John to be with my family. One of my clients badgered my secretary. "Where is she? Where is she? Where is she?" One of these high maintenance morons that want to talk to you every 5 minutes. And they said to him, "Her father has taken a heart attack and she's gone to St. John, New Brunswick." That client called around the hospitals in St. John, New Brunswick, asking for Mr. Palmater, and found my father's room. And my father, who was under medication, took this phone call. And the guy is going on about not being able to find me. And my father thought I was lost, that I was missing. And by the time I got to the hospital, my family was furious because my dad had to be sedated because he was so agitated, thinking that I was somehow missing. And I remembered calling and leaving a message to the partner I worked with at the firm that night saying, if this is what the practice of law is about, this is not for me. My father is about to have quadruple bypass surgery. I cannot believe somebody would call his hospital bed because their whatever is so important that, you know, so that
Right.
they had experienced that with me, my family, so they knew on some level. And on that very visit, they were going to send my dad home with this machine because we live in a remote place where my mom would hook him up and the doctor in St. John would be able to see his vital signs. They hooked me up just to show my mom how to hook the machine up. And when they hooked me up, the two nurses panicked. And I said, what's wrong? And they said, you have to go see a doctor right away. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, your blood pressure is like 210 over 120. And
Oh my gosh.
I said, what? And they said, no, you don't understand. Like, you could stroke at any minute. And I was only 32. And I realized, and they realized, the stress of that profession was killing me. It was killing me. So I have never regretted walking away. You look at pictures of me at 51, you look at pictures of me at 32, I look 20 years younger now than I did then.
So a couple of questions that you glossed over a few details. I need to go back and ask you before we move forward. The first thing is, you said your dad was an extreme alcoholic. Yes. How did he just one day wake up and quit?
He had his first drink with his own mother at 10. He grew up in a house with alcoholism. And my mom and dad, on their fourth baby, had my brother Bruce. And my brother Bruce was born with what they called at the time mongoloidism. He had very severe Down syndrome. And he died after 3 months.
I'm sorry.
And my mom was a very healthy, strong woman who never was drunk a day in her life. And my father convinced himself that Bruce happened because he was drinking. And the doctors had said, no, it doesn't work that way. The alcohol doesn't travel through the sperm, blah, blah, blah. But in his mind, no, somehow him drinking ruined this baby. So my mother always says, Bruce was sent to us for a very special reason. Bruce was sent to us so your father could find his sobriety. And it was in the couple of years after his death that my father tried and failed, and then finally, not through AA, but through just white knuckling it, climbed on that wagon, got himself straightened away, knew he had to isolate himself because if he was around the people he drank with, he felt he would, have a relapse.
Sure.
So he approached this farmer that owned a 135-acre farm up on the mountain in the woods in a little place called Point Lenim, New Brunswick. And he said to the guy, look, I can't read or write, so there's no point in bothering with paperwork. And I can't pay much. My life is in shambles. I'm just getting sober, and I need somewhere safe to bring my family. So they agreed. They shook hands, and they agreed it would be $21 a month. And Daddy bought this farm and put the family up on the hill on the farm, and they had to close off parts of the house because they couldn't heat the whole thing. And when he was 50 years sober, I said to him that day, like, you're not really an alcoholic, Daddy. I mean, you've never even drank in my lifetime. You've been sober longer than you were ever an alcoholic by this point. And he said, sweetheart, it has been 50 years. And when I smell a rum, my mouth waters. So trust me, I'm an alcoholic. But he said, this morning when I woke up, I decided that today I wouldn't drink. And that's what I've done every day for the last 50 years. But I can't tell you about tomorrow until we get there.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible willpower. And it just speaks to how strong, alcoholism and how easily it can control your life once it gets control of you. Another question, Candy, I wanted to ask you about when your dad went back to your mom and said he wanted a do-over to have one more kid. You said she was 43, was it?
She was 43 and he was 46.
How the heck did she react?
She said yes, without even hesitating, because my mom My mother wanted to be a mother the way I want to be Oprah. Like, that's why she got married. Like, that is why she got married. Like, that was the only reason. It was like, I want babies. And back
Right.
then, you had to get married to have babies. So when her first kids came, they were so poor and there was so many kids. Like, all she had time to do was just try to keep everybody alive and fed. Like,
Right.
there was like, she's got a drunk husband. There's no power.
Was it
It's stressful.
extreme poverty as well?
Very much so. So very stressful. When he came to her about having a seventh kid, they were in a peaceful time. He had been sober for 10 years by then, so she was pretty sure this was going to stick. They were living up on that mountain, and she thought, I can have an experience with this baby I didn't get to have with the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't hesitate, but the night I was born, or the afternoon, it was a December afternoon, and I weighed just half an ounce short of 11 pounds, and I
Wow.
21 inches long.
Oh my, you gave her a run for her money.
She said when I finally came out, she said to the doctor, oh my God, doctor, what is it, a girl or a boy? And the doctor said, Mrs. Palmater, it's a girl, and I'm pretty sure if we stand her up, she will walk. She looks 2. So it was a bit of a shock. And then she had the fear of bringing me home to that old farmhouse.
Yeah.
It was a storm the night they brought me home. They couldn't get any cars up the mountain. My brother came down on a snowmobile and said, give me the baby and get on the back. She didn't want to hand me over. So she walked the mountain in the snow, worried that I was going to, die of a cold in the house. I was happy and healthy as could be. When I was 4, they built a new house up there, and it all was fine. But she was able to, like, if you look at my childhood pictures, it's little dresses with little head wraps that match, and little knitted outfits where, like, my little knitted sweater matches her knitted sweater. And CBC did a documentary on me about 15 years ago, and when they interviewed her, she said it was like I had my own little doll, and it was just her and I up there, and there were no other kids. So when I wanted a picnic, she would make us little ham sandwiches and lemonade, and we'd lay the blanket out on the grass next to the dining room window, and we'd go out there together. And like, all I ever wanted was to be with my mother. Like, my mother was the love of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, like, it was amazing to have an adult person be that invested in you.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible feeling.
Well, and powerful to carry you through your life, to have that sense of self-confidence, because that's really where it all began. Did you honor your indigenous roots? Do you speak the language?
I can't speak the language. In my community, there's only my Auntie Margaret was the last one that was really super fluent, and she passed a couple of years after my dad died. When I was really young, we used to go to the reserve to visit Auntie Margaret, and then we stopped going there, and I'm not sure why that happened. And then there was always this confusion for me, because like, I only ever saw my dad's side of the family, so I saw like Mi'kmaq people all the time, but I wasn't really sure like how I fit in, because mommy was white and daddy was Mi'kmaq, and daddy had some internalized racism issues.
Okay.
And through my teens, like in my early years of school, I had friends from the reserve. And then as I got older, I lost a lot of those friends, because I was on this path to, like, athleticism was my whole life. And I was so involved in school life. And a lot of the kids that I was in school with that were from the res, they weren't that tied into school life, right? I had a really different kind of life than a lot of indigenous kids have. But when I hit about 18, 19, I started to get, as the kids would say, woke. I started to get very woke. And that deepened as I grew older. And then I went through this weird stage at 24, 25, where I was saying to my mother, I don't know what to do with you. I don't know what to do with the fact that you're the oppressor. I don't know what to do with the fact that your blood is coursing through my veins. And yet you're the person I love more than anybody in the world. And she said, well, you know how you're always telling people don't judge all indigenous people by the actions of some. Well, ditto, kid. And so
Wow.
it
Smart woman.
then she said one of the most profound things she said, maybe your job is to be a bridge. Maybe your job is to first figure out how to bridge that in you,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out how to bridge that in the greater world. And that's exactly what I've been doing ever since.
That is powerful, because you also said something that really caught my attention is when you were talking about watching, it was Sesame Street, and you saw yourself in her. But, I look at you, you're absolutely stunning, but I don't see those indigenous roots.
Oh, isn't that funny? You know
Yeah.
what? That's often the case with white folks. Now, other indigenous people see it. That's just the way it is, kind of thing, I guess. If I showed you pictures of me when I was a kid, you would definitely not mistake it.
Mm.
My skin was much, much darker as a child, although I've got the lightest skin in the family. My siblings have a much darker skin.
Okay.
But I have the darkest eyes, I have the darkest hair. Also, I'm in a full face of makeup. When I don't have the full face of makeup,
Yeah.
a little more obvious.
Okay.
Eyes
Okay.
are small. As a teenager, until I was about 20, I actually had a mono lid. So I looked more Inuit than I did First Nation.
What's that? What's monolid?
So like, you know how Asian people have a mono lid, like instead of having a crease,
Yes.
the lid is flat from the lash to the brow bone. It's called a
Oh,
mono lid.
okay.
And sometimes Asian women in an attempt to try to look more white will have that operated on.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, around 17, 18, a crease developed.
Wow.
But if you looked at my eyes when I was younger,
It was different.
yeah, it's a whole
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that and giving me the education in that area. Because like I said, we all need that to gain that understanding. Okay, one more thing before we continue with the story. And you just kind of slipped it in there when you said, yeah. And so I left my boyfriend of so many years, 8 years, and then I just went off and I married my wife. Okay, wait,
Yeah.
what?
So
Explain, please.
I was madly in love. I had met this guy when I was 20 and he was 36. And I had, I grew up, my friends loved Wham, and I loved Motley Crue and Iron Maiden.
Oh man.
And I was raised on a biker dealership, which I constantly, whenever my parents would, say something about my taste in men, I'd always say, you raised me in a biker dealership.
Yeah.
The chances of me falling in love with a banker are pretty slim. Right? Like all my good memories as a little kid bringing me stuffed animals and Oreo cookies were big, hairy guys in leather jackets. So I found myself a big, hairy guy in a leather jacket. And he was a real bad boy. He wasn't a poser. He had a criminal past and the whole bit. And he was big, 6'4". I'm 5'10". It's not very often I can lay my head on someone.
Mm.
And I fell like just head over heels in love. But I'm also, and have always been, an intelligent woman. So in that place inside you that knows,
Yeah.
I knew this guy wasn't good for me, but oh my God, I know poutine's not good for me either, but I still love it. So I indulged in that man really lovingly indulged in it for probably 9 years. Around year 10, I knew I can't stay with him. Like he's not being faithful to me. I'm catching him, running around. He's not doing the things that I want him to do for me. Like I wanted to have children, and I thought, look, you don't even have to work, baby. I'll work. You just have to look after the kids. And he was like, oh, no, you have to make enough money to support me and a nanny because I'm not going to be looking after kids. So I knew at around 30, I've got to go. And it took me 2 years. It took me from 30 to 32. And I think for any women out there who are in that kind of a relationship, it never, like, I love him still. Like there's no, it's not like suddenly you get cured of that. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, leaving him, but it was the best choice I ever made in my life. And it's funny, I'm somebody who reads very deep, profound things, yet I'm going to quote Twilight right now. And I'm not even sure it was in the book, but in the first movie, Bella's father says to her, Bella, you have to learn to love what's good for you. And at 32, I learned to love what was good for me. And I am a dominant woman who is attracted to dominant men. And that makes for a very unpeaceful life.
Right.
Had I chosen a man who was subservient to me, it would have been peaceful, but I would have not been turned on by him.
Right.
So I realized that with women, when I met Denise, I could have this incredible connection emotionally that didn't seem to be there with men. And I didn't have to give up any of my power. And I could still be as big as I wanted to be. And she would just be there to bolster me. And so I leaned hard into the idea of this is what is good for me. And my mother, I took her home, and we were home for about 6 hours, and my mother did, which means meet me in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I went in the kitchen and she said, "This is the first time you have brought somebody home who has a job and has never been to jail, and I love her." So my mother felt my taste of women was much better than my taste in men. And ironically, the guy I was with for a long time was a lot like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And Denise is a lot like my mother.
Oh, wow. Isn't
So
that interesting?
her and my mom were very, very close until my mom died. In fact, on my mother's deathbed, my mother was asking for me. I was on my way home. I had just gotten off the air at Q, and I was on my way home for a visit. She was 90. She was healthy. I was just going to stop for a gig in PEI. 2 weeks before, she kept saying, "When's the baby coming? When's the baby coming?" And then when I got to PEI, I was on stage, and my sister called Denise and said, "Mommy went in the hospital. You guys are going to have to rush home." We got halfway there, and my sister called again and said, "I'm sorry, she lost consciousness. You're not going to get to say goodbye to her." Well, I got there. She was unconscious. We sat with her, the whole family, for quite a few hours. And then we were just stepping out to get coffee, and everyone kissed her. And when I leaned over to kiss her, my hair hit her face, and I said, "Mommy, it's the baby." And she went, and her hands flew up, and she grabbed my hands so hard, she left little bruises around my rings. And she squeezed me, and she struggled to talk. And finally she said, "I'm glad you're here. I'm dying." And I said, "I know, Mommy, but I'm good. I got everything." And Denise leaned over her and said, "I got her now. I got her. You can go. I got her." So it was this beautiful moment of, I knew that my mother died peaceful in the fact that someone who really loves me is still going to be there, even though she's gone. So it was.
Damn it, Candy, I wasn't expecting. You're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to make me laugh.
I know, but I'll tell you, nobody could laugh at herself the way my mother could. I get my sense of humor from my mother, and it was a beautiful moment to look at my siblings and say, man, she was there when we all took our first breath, and we were all here.
Oh, man.
She took her last.
Right.
And is there anything any of us could ever want more as a human being? I watched her in that bed, and I thought, let it be that for me. Let me lay in that bed at the end at 90 years old, with a room full of people who love me fiercely, sending me off. Man, that you can't ask for better than that.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, and she was so peaceful about it.
Mm-hmm.
She was just, my mother was always peaceful though about accepting. Like, don't fight the current. And I try to do that in my life. I always, when I'm talking to kids, I say, listen, make a plan. But understand that when you get in your canoe and you start down the river, a big rock sometimes will appear. If you try to stick to your plan, you are going to smash your boat on that rock and disintegrate. So when a rock shows up, you got to quickly make a new plan. So I don't fight the current. I let the current take me, but I don't float. I paddle like a mother into that current.
Like a mother.
Yeah, like I make sure that I'm moving my boat along, but I try not to fight the power that is pushing me in a certain direction. I try to keep my eyes open for that. And sometimes that's the universe saying to you, your plan wasn't quite the right plan.
Right. So there you are in your boat, and you're now married, and you're going down with that current on a comedy career.
Yeah.
Take it there, because you absolutely exploded. It's not like you were just doing gigs. You got your own damn TV show.
Yeah. My
Back to the story.
My mother's best tagline, the baby She graduated as valedictorian from her class at law school. Now she talks about my private parts on television. Because she was 80, what was she, 83 or 84 when I got the first season of the Candy Show. And I told a joke about her clitoris.
No. Really?
What is mortified. So I do that gig for the Human Rights Commission. I start getting some gigs, like corporate gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going well. And then I got asked to go to the Halifax Comedy Fest, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
You get televised and all of that. And then I thought, oh my God, that show I used to think about when I was a teenager. Now's the time. So at this point, I'm zooming towards 40 fairly quickly. And I just believe it's never too late. So I start saying to everybody, oh, you're a janitor at CBC? Let me tell you about the Candy Show. Oh, you make sandwiches for the people on set? Let me tell you about the Candy Show. Like, you have to be your own best salesperson. Mm-hmm. And I used to just say that to everybody. And someone called me to audition for something. Can't remember what it was. But I said to her, yeah, I'm happy to audition. But let me tell you about the Candy Show. I got a call that night and she said, you didn't get the part, but tell me more about the Candy Show.
Stop. And
we started chatting about that. I had at the same time posed for this Tits and Glitz. Denise, are you there? Yeah, I wanted her to get. Can you grab the Tits and Glitz poster off the wall?
Oh, Jesus.
Right here, if you can reach it. I had gone to this fundraiser for breast cancer called Tits and Glitz.
Okay.
And a really good photographer made a calendar the first year I went of people she liked their costumes. And I thought, I have to come up with a really good costume. And next year, if that costume is good, she's going to pick me for the calendar. And I can use the calendar to springboard myself.
Let's see it.
So I asked a woman to make me a can outfit in my size.
Oh, man. Like, that's pure gold.
Full on can, corset and all.
And smoke show Candy.
And sure enough, the photographer chose me. I got in the calendar. Then the photographer called me 2 months later and said, CBC's doing a thing about breast cancer. They want to use a couple of shots from the calendar. They want to use yours. Can I send the producer to your office? I said, sure. I quickly put out like all my gack in my office, like pictures of me with like Ricky from the trailer park and me on stage. And I thought, when she walks in here with those papers, I am going to like say as much as I can in the time that she's there. So she came in and I was just like, hey, I'm Candy. Yeah. And she left. And then I waited and I waited. 2 weeks later, I get the call. She says, I think you'd make great TV. I was like, yes.
Oh, man.
We want to do a part on the news. Oh, okay. Well, it's something. Mm-hmm. It was an 8-minute part on the news.
Oh, wow. On CBC News, you got an 8-minute part?
That's pretty big, right?
It is.
So I was like, okay, this isn't bad. And then some producer at CBC in Toronto saw the part, called the producer in Halifax and said, we should make a documentary about her making this transition from lawyer to comedian. So next thing I know, CBC is following me with cameras for about 1.5 years to make this documentary, which ironically they also called The Candy Show. Uh-huh. The documentary hit just as I was pitching The Candy Show. I got the pilot. APTN gave me money to make a pilot. I made the pilot. They aired it. I waited 1.5 years.
Oh, that's a long wait.
I was like, I guess they didn't like it. I don't know what's happening. And then I was down in Seattle to see Pink on her first American tour. And I got the call. We'd like 6 episodes for the first season.
Oh, gosh.
And then I was off to the races. 5 seasons, 13 episodes in the last 3 seasons, shot in front of a live studio audience in Halifax, won lots of awards for it. It was everything I had dreamed it would be. It was amazing. And that started right after I got my first artificial hip put in at the age of 40.
Artificial hip. Wow.
Yeah. We were doing the planning for the first season when I had my hip replaced.
And you just plowed forward.
Yeah. Because I said to the doctor, I can't limp on stage in my first season. You got you got to get that hip in and get me rocking and rolling. And he
And
was like, I'll do my part, you do yours. It was like a high five, buddy. I love my surgeon. I stayed awake. I ran 2 hours of material and of comedy in the room while they were cutting my hip out. At one point, the intern said, if she doesn't stop, I'm going to drop her leg. I can't stop it.
oh my gosh.
We were only about 3 minutes in when I said, I had an epidural. I said, I can't really feel, but it sort of feels like you have a dental dam between the cheeks of my ass. Is that accurate?
Oh, jeez.
They said, well, we don't call them dental dams, but yeah, that's pretty much what's going on.
Wow.
I was
wow.
off from there.
Okay, so how many seasons did you say?
5 seasons. And
multiple awards.
yeah, I won my thing that I was most proud of, because the purpose of the show for me was to promote up-and-coming musicians, heavily influence in indigenous musicians and Atlantic Canadian musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And at the Canadian Indigenous Music Awards, 2 years in a row, I won Best Television Series for promoting music. So that I was super proud of that. And it was, it was everything I had dreamed it would be. And when it ended, some people were sad, and I said, no, it has to end because I have to be open now for the next chapter.
And what did you see that as? I mean, you had your own TV show.
I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be great. And so I started gigging really heavy. And halfway through those 5 seasons, I had quit my day job. For the first 2 seasons, I still had a day job. I quit my day job, and I was like, okay, this is great. I don't have to work for anybody anymore. And Denise had already quit her day job. She manages me. And I was gigging a lot, and we were putting, the price of my speakers fees up higher and higher. And it's like, this is a good life. Even if this is all I ever do, this is a good life. And then I was on a plane on the way home from a gig, and I look at the newspaper of the man beside me, and in the corner it says, Jian Gomeshi fired from CBC.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought was, oh, I should have that job. And so when we got home, I said, Denise, we have to figure out who we know at CBC Toronto, because I need an audition for this show. And she said, you're not going to believe this. They called already. And I said, really? And the guy that called me didn't even know who I was. It was some Halifax producer that had kept bugging him to call me. And when he called, he said, we'd like to bring you up for 3 days. I said, no, I need 5. And he was like, lady, this is the biggest radio show like in North America. Most people are lucky to even be asked. And I said, no, you have to understand, I'm a slow burn. I'm going to be good on Monday. I'm going to be great on Friday. So you got to give me the 5 days. So he gave me the 5 days. I gave it everything I had. The listener response was amazing. They called me and said, yeah, we just want to let you know you were fabulous. You had the best listener response, but you made it clear that you're a fully formed person and you're going to need that show to morph to you. And we want someone who's going to morph themselves to the show. Wow. So we're going with Shad. So okay. I was mortified. And I thought, now the whole country has seen me fail.
Oh, gosh.
Big fat fall on my face, right? They saw how hard I went for this. Now I'm not going to have it. Couple of hours of poor me. My phone rings. Jonathan Torrance from the Trailer Park Boys. Candy, I'm so glad you didn't get Q. Thanks, buddy. He said, well, you don't understand. We wrote a whole character in season 10 in every episode with you in mind. We even called her Candy. And when we heard you got that audition, we thought, shit, if she gets that show, she's not going to do this. So I went from feeling sorry for myself to a week later, I'm on set with Snoop Dogg, Jimmy Kimmel, Tom Arnold, shooting the Trailer Park Boys season 10, and it was just dreamy. I got some other acting in around there, but I have to say the Trailer Park Boys was my favorite thing in terms of acting that I've done, because I got to play a villain, and I'm kind of known for my kindness. And on that trailer park, man, I had full like gang regalia and makeup. A big pink bat that I had picked out. They wanted me to carry a gun. I showed up with a pink bat instead. I was driving a 1982 Rally Sport Camaro, and I rocked a bed that said, I rock all the girls. I was just like bouncing through that trailer park. So it's one of those things again where like a rock presented itself. When I steered around that rock, I hit another really juicy spot. And then we decided, let's make the move to Toronto. And when I made the move to Toronto, I was going to guest host Q for a week because Shad was going on vacation. And they said to me, how would you like a summer show every day, 5 days a week? Sure. And I was off to the races. So at that point, I was 46 when I got my first national radio show. So, and I still have all the bags of mail. Susan Margetti, the head of CBC Radio, said I got more actual paper mail than any other show ever has on Radio 1.
Wow.
People were sending me big, long, handwritten letters and
that's
artwork.
Huge because people don't do handwritten letters anymore.
It was beautiful. I still have them all. And people would make artwork while they were listening to me and then send me the artwork. It was beautiful.
Jeez.
Really beautiful.
So where's life at today? You're gigging all over North America? Well, not
I have my first book deal, which is fabulous. So I still will make some money before I have to go into the sex trade. I was booked solid until the floor just fell out. But I'm still now doing some, taking some meetings with people, planning some possible projects coming in, like kind of different areas than I've done before. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I think a spoken word album might be in the make. I'm loving the process of doing the book. I'm trying to keep my sanity by, finding ways to be in touch with who I am while I'm stuck in this quarantine. I try to tweet some funnies. The other day I tweeted out, I said, look, I saw a video online about how to make a face mask out of a bra, the bra cup. So I tried it. They had an A cup. I wear a D cup. I now have a black lace helmet. He said my cup was a bit too big for a face mask. So I'm just trying every day to be in touch with my funny, keep my sense of humor. I seem to do well until like day 6. Every 6 days, I have a meltdown. I start to cry and I freak out. And then I go online and I see these people that are like, come out of this fitter than you went into it, or, write the great novel. I was like, are you people crazy? Listen, if I'm alive when this is over, I won. That's all I want. I just want to live through it. I'll worry about how to make my living later. Although I am a little worried about that, right? How long is it going to be before we can be on the road again?
Yeah, that I was going to say. Are you really worried? You just see, you manifest shit and it just happens.
Well, that's the thing is I'm thinking like the book, I was having a hard time getting the book done because I was on the road so much. So this is a way for me to finish the book. I have 2 more drawdowns, which Denise and I can live on for quite a bit. Then I also thought there was another book I had an idea for. Maybe now's the time to get that done. And I had wanted a Juno nomination, and I had wanted it for a comedy album. And I have just been meeting with a company where we were talking about when I get my hip replaced, doing this big comedy tour and a big comedy special and making an album from it. It would be nominated. And then the other day I just started thinking about, I really love the idea of my words put to music. Like Maya Angelou has done it in the past. Yep. Stephen Fry has done it. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, there's a couple of musicians that I would love to have, like to send them the pieces of me speaking and to have them lay the music in. And then I thought maybe that's something I can do here, they can do there. So if this isolation lasts for a year and a half, 2 years, maybe that's what's going to come up out of it.
Listen, in a year from now or 2, when it does happen, will you just come back and do a podcast with me? Because Absolutely. Your story, you think about it and all of a sudden it's on your lap. So I'm going to take a number of pages out of your book because Absolutely. I'm waiting for it to happen. And now, go ahead.
Understand that there are a lot of missteps along the way. There's a lot of scraped knees. There's a lot of falling down. There's a lot of bruises. But the point of it is you have to figure out like what is success for you. And success for me is I'm trying. I don't want to be 90 and say, I wonder if I could have been a comedian. I wonder if I could have written a book. Even if I write the shittiest book ever and nobody wants to read it, I tried. I tried it. So don't sit on your couch and wonder. You gotta try it. I'm covered in tattoos. A lot of them are family members, and this one right here, you can hardly see. My brother Billy, he died 22 years ago from cancer. He was the oldest. He was 21 when I was born. And when I was 4, he put me on a set of skis. He was the most beautiful skier. And he told me he was going to teach me how to ski. And I was all turned out, Spider Savage ski hat and my little bomber jacket. No front teeth because I was only 4. And I'm waiting for my lesson. And he was a very big, like, muscly man. And he leaned over and he put his hand on my chest and poof, he pushed me down in the snow. And I said, oh, I thought you were going to teach me how to ski. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to ski, sweetheart. But first I'm going to teach you how to get up. Because falling is inevitable when you're learning how to ski. But he said, if you know how to get up, you'll ski without fear. Now, at 4, I thought he was talking about skiing. 22 years after cancer took him from me, he was teaching me about life. I live without the fear of falling down because I know how to get up. And every now and then when I fall really, really hard. And I wonder, can I get up? And when that happens, the first thing I do is I put my hand out and I say, I need some help. And the most amazing thing about the universe is every time I put that hand out, someone grabs it and helps me up. And once I get up and I get stable on my feet, then I keep my eyes out because I realize now my job is to look for who else might have a handout saying I need some help. So I manifest it and it happens, but I just don't want people to think like it's a smooth road. It is a hard road. It is the most rewarding, wonderful road ever because there are no stones left unturned in my journey. I have tried my hand at everything. Things I love, I do again. Things I don't, I say I'm glad I tried it and I moved on. But I'm never ever embarrassed about failure, and I never look at it as a stopping point. To me, it's okay, there was something I'm supposed to learn out of this. And as I'm getting up, I got my eyes open because I know there's got to be something fantastic coming up. So that I just want to make sure people are clear about that.
Oh my goodness. I think you need to go back and listen to this podcast when it's published and write down everything you just said and put it in your book because it's that damn powerful.
Well, like most of that is in the book. Yeah.
Geez, like that's motivational speaker right there. I would pay for that stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
I want to know from this quarantine, you must be getting some really great material out of it, like some comedy. Give us a taste of what you're working on, what's in your show. When we get to watch the Candy Show online. However, if this quarantine,
right now I'm still trying to like mine through a lot of it. Comedy is an interesting thing because you think about the funny bits, and then you have to see how to make them funny for other people. So like the other day I was like just online because that's the only way I can do it now, right? I don't have an audience. And I was like, well, shit, it looks like my frequent flyer points are taking a shit kicking this year. And a couple of people were like, oh, well, those are first world problems. And I was like, people, I'm working out some comedy here. You got to tell me if you found that funny or not.
Yeah.
And then a couple of people came back and said, oh yeah, you're killing me. You're killing me with the bra thing. You're killing me with this. So I'm just trying to find, because usually you got to leave a little bit of space, right? Between tragedy and comedy.
Yes.
For it to be funny. But I'm trying to find it as I'm in it. So, if I spend the night crying because I think, oh my God, I'm going to be broke. Because also all my past earnings were in the market.
Yes.
It's like, so yeah. So I was on a podcast the other day. I said, so everybody's telling me I got to pivot. Over my lifetime, I've gained about 200 pounds since law school. I always try to figure out what's the meaning in life. I've figured out the meaning to that. My pivot is going to be, I'm going into the sex trade, but instead of charging by the hour, I'm going to charge by a pound, and I'm going to make a killing. A killing. There's a reason for everything. So I'm just trying to like work through, some of that stuff and all the weird things that are happening. Like, you love your significant other, but loving them in 900 square feet 24/7, that's
it's a different ball game.
And I mean, I think it's harder for her than it is for me. Like, she's an introvert, she lives her own life. I am, look at me, give to me, pay attention to me, give me. And every now and then she's like, okay, I gotta go for a walk. And I realize that that's code for I'm gonna kill you if I don't get out. Because she is trapped in 900 square feet with this freaking 5'10" whirling dervish of, pay attention to me. I need all your attention. she was reminiscing the other day. She goes, I should have known. The first time you took me home and your mother opened the china cabinet and dumped that little shot glass out with a handful of teeth and said, look, those are all Candy's baby teeth. She's like, I should have just ran then. Because my parents created a monster. I have like all the little bracelet from when you're born in the hospital, my baptism candle, my confirmation candle, my first ponytail. It's a shrine to Candy. So my parents created it. My poor wife has to deal with it now.
Your wife's a saint.
She really is. If she comes out of this alive, she's going to have a book to write.
Right? Tell me about all that nail polish that's on your wall right now. People listening to us can't see it, but trust me, what do you have? Like about 60 bottles or something?
There's 90 bottles on that rack. And that's now I had over 400 and I culled it down to this. When I was a little kid, I always loved makeup. I fell in love with makeup when I found out my sister-in-law's purse. I remember finding my first lipstick and putting it all over me. My father was an old school misogynist and he didn't want me to wear makeup till high school, but he let me wear nail polish. And I have really beautiful natural nails, which I got from my dad.
They are. I thought they were fake.
Yeah, no, big nail beds. They're not even really long. It's just that my nail beds are so long.
Oh, wow.
And my dad always taught me when I was young, like, take a toothbrush and once a day brush around your nails, keep your cuticles healthy, rub your mother's oil, like Crisco oil into it. Now that I'm an adult, I use nail oil. But my dad was a mechanic. He sat down at my mother's tables every night. His hands looked like he was an investment banker. So I got my hands from Daddy. And because I was allowed to do nail polish from a young age, it became my thing. So people who watch me on Instagram know I post nails once a week. I got my collection there. I do all kinds of fun stuff. It's a nice way to express yourself. Other things behind me, books.
Yes, lots. You're an avid reader.
When I left Halifax, they charge you by the weight of your stuff when they move you on the transport truck.
Yeah.
And they gave me a bill for $10,000. And I said, $10,000? Are you crazy? And he said, lady, you have 12,000 pounds worth of stuff. 8,000 pounds of that is books. We loaded those first.
Wow.
That's what you're paying to move. So I paid to move them all the way to Toronto. Then we got here, arrived at the apartment. I left a 3,000 square foot house, got to this 900 square foot apartment and realized there's no room for any of my books. I have a $330 a month storage space where my books live.
Do you visit them?
Sometimes. Can't right now. But I also give a lot of them away to libraries, like little, community libraries and stuff. And I did a whole show on Sheila Rogers' show about what it was like culling the herd, how I made those decisions. And now at 51, the new challenge is I'm 51. If I look at how long my parents lived, I could assume I'm probably going to go to 90. Let's say I can read until I'm 90 because my mom lost her ability to read in the last couple of years. That means I only have about 39 years of reading left. I got to be much more picky about my books now. Right? So I had to let Game of Thrones go. I'm sorry, but I don't have time for
I hear you.
I don't have time to read that. There's too many other good things back here that have to get read before I die. So
okay.
I did that on Sheila Rogers. I spoke at a literacy conference 2 weeks later, and this old Greek man comes over to me. He goes, Candy Palmater, I've been waiting to meet you. My name is Costas. I'm 86. You think you got problems. He said it hadn't dawned on him until he heard me. And then all of a sudden he started to panic. He's like, oh my God, I might only have 6 years of reading left. I got to.
Oh, that is just so great. Listen, I love, as you can tell, I love to laugh, and I have a new girl crush, and you are it. Like, I have laughed so much during this podcast, and it honestly has been so therapeutic because of and I'm going to use this word, and I hate it because it's so overused, unprecedented times.
It is unprecedented though.
We are living through. So thank you for the laughs. Can you leave us some perspective as we're navigating through this shitstorm?
Yeah, I think I draw a lot of strength from my history. At the very beginning of my comedy career, I got asked to do comedy for the survivors of residential schools right after Stephen Harper had signed the apology. the Atlantic Policy Congress were gathering all the survivors from Atlantic Canada, and over 3 days they were going to have to recount everything they had lived through to find out what their compensation would be. They asked me to come in and do comedy on the final night, and I was like, I don't think that's a good fit, folks. Thanks for calling, but no thanks. I got a call from an elder, and she said, look, humor is how we have survived everything that's happened to us. And if that's the gift that you've got, that's what you owe. So when an elder says that to you, you put your stuff in the car and you drive to Moncton. And I did the gig, and it was a fabulous gig. And afterwards, they were all hugging me, and it just happened organically. They'd be like, oh, I'm your fan. You don't know me, blah, blah. But when they would hug me, they whispered in my ear, I did 3 years in Shuby. I did 10 years in Shuby. They were all telling me how long they had done in residential school. And I got in the car and I cried, like from Moncton all the way back to Halifax. And in bed that night, I said to Denise, tonight I realized how serious this funny business is. So my advice is, whatever it is that tickles your funny bone, you need to look for that right now. Do not listen to the people that tell you need to be writing the magnum opus, or that you need to be losing 20 pounds in this time, or whatever. Don't try to read books that are self-help, or that are gonna be a challenge. What are the books that you love? Like that stuff that you read on the beach when you're drinking pina coladas? Read that right now. Are there movies that you just love? Last night I watched The Birdcage and an old one from the 1940s, His Girl Friday. 2 feel-good movies that took my mind off of what was happening. I have a book due. I spent 6 hours yesterday coloring. I have a real penchant for coloring. I have very fancy coloring supplies and fancy books, and I can't really draw very well from scratch. I'm just bringing up a picture, but I can color really, really well. And so in this quarantine time, just to give you an example, there was a picture I selected from a book.
Oh my goodness.
And there's how I colored it.
Candy, I'm taking a picture so I can post all this on Instagram too, and I will post your picture of your can outfit. I've never heard someone take so much pride and joy in coloring.
That took me 2 days to color. It took me about 12 hours altogether. And I was so proud of the fox's fur looks real. When I'm doing women's faces, I'm really, really challenged with and trying to work hard at this little part on your lip, this little making that look real. And it's hard to see in this size, but I got it looking pretty good with her.
Gee, amazing.
So whatever will take your mind off of your stress, your freak out, do it. Do it, and do it without guilt, and do it without shame. And if you're not having an easy time sleeping at night, sleep during the day. I mean, it doesn't matter right now, right? We don't have to have these perfect routines. Do what's going to keep you sane and healthy. And I'd say pick up the phone or get on the Zoom and try to stay connected to people as much as you can. I'm connecting to old high school friends, like the women I moved to Halifax with when I was 20. We've been Zooming together, and it's been lovely. My old high school boyfriend and I are texting every day, and I'm sharing my coloring. He and his daughter are learning the bass, and he's sharing some bass lines with me. And find ways to still connect and be human with other people. I usually say no to podcasts because I'm always on the road and so busy. As soon as this happened, I said to Denise, get in touch with everybody who's asked me to be on a podcast in the last month. Tell them yes. Suddenly, I'm free. Other than deep conditioning my hair next Tuesday, I got nothing to do. So, I just do what you have to do to make you happy. And don't worry too much about, we're all going to come out of it. I mean, look at the World War, how stressful that was. They all came out of it, right? Our folks lived. They figured out how to get through the Depression. They figured out my people figured out how to come through residential school and genocide. This too shall pass.
Stronger, better, together. You, my friend, and I'm going to use that, are a national treasure, and you have been such a gift to me today. And I know that anyone who is listening is going to feel the same way. Thank you so much for stepping into the inner circle and hopping on my podcast. I will treasure this conversation for a lifetime because you filled my bucket. Candy Palmater, you are something else. Thank you.
Let's tip our hat to the people who connected us online.
Woo woo to them.
Yes. Thanks so much.